The saga of Mario Maker 2 is finally over. It's an objectively pretty dang good game, but also one I have massive problems with as a sequel. But now that it's gotten its last update, the question immediately becomes, what's next? What needs to be done in order for this series to evolve and overcome the middling reception of this controversial sequel? I think it's a bit too early to start talking about new enemies, course elements, themes, and styles. For all I know, they'll release a new 2D Mario by then with a hand-painted art style or something crazy. Or maybe the game will be for a console that is fundamentally very different from what we'd expect. Or maybe society will finally collapse into glorious, glorious anarchy. Hey, a guy can dream, right? Just way too many variables. Also, it's really early and I don't want to look like I'm milking. Oh, what I'm most curious about is how the series will stabilize, and most importantly, how it should address the problems Mario Maker 2 and even the original had. It's not particularly eye-catching or clickbaity, but it may well be the most important aspect this sequel should address. I definitely think it's worth going over. And I even have a special guest with me today, the host of the lovely Mario Maker 2 tutorial series, Item Breakdown, Tobias Bergdorf.
I'll be popping in here every now and then to provide a more analytical perspective on things. Considering I spend pretty much every day thinking about this godforsaken game, I'm happy for the opportunity to talk about what could be improved. So, take it away, obscured box.
But it's the hidden chest. I'm not a box. Alright, this is a huge one for me. Mario Maker 2 has a lot of course element limitations. Compared to the original, it's bizarrely strict for some unknown reason my tiny ape brain can't possibly comprehend. Some of them are completely arbitrary and would take next to no effort to be fixed. Snow spikes, snow pokies, lava and water, snowballs and rotten mushrooms should all absolutely be made available in every theme. I think that's something we can all agree on. Snow spikes would have to be given a new look to tell them apart from regular spikes, but other than that, this should be a simple thing. What's way less simple, however, is 3D World, which was one of my biggest gripes overall with this game. The way it was implemented seriously decreased the amount of, well, everything we got, and even how we could use it, if at all. Interestingly, it has been discovered via glitch that almost every item in the game is actually compatible with both the parts of the game, 3D World and everything else. They just don't have art assets and maybe haven't been bug tested. Sprite work seems like it would be a relatively simple thing. People on the internet do this kind of thing all the time, for free. Just for the fun of it. So I don't really see how Nintendo couldn't do the same. As for the 3D models, I don't think that's quite as big of a hurdle as people would think. You see, 3D World uses the Nintendo-approved, safe and generic Mario art style of the Wii U era, i.e., it's almost exactly like the new Super Mario Bros. Series. Some of the official art used in this game is literally identical between the two styles, if that says anything. So, what Nintendo would probably need to do is simply swap the missing course elements' various models between these two styles, and then update the textures and animations to fit each game. Any changes in behavior beyond that is up to Nintendo themselves. Obviously, certain 3D World enemies would need some behavioral changes, but this is a thing that already happens all the time between styles, so it's manageable. Also, give 3D World more and better semi-solids. You know, that can actually be placed behind walls. Frankly, the current implementation isn't exactly solid. If only there were some sort of prefix to accurately describe just how not solid it is. Oh well. Night themes are a mite bit odd. While they technically bring a lot to the game, it really compartmentalizes everything in a very underwhelming way. both aesthetically and mechanically. Now don't get me wrong, some of the mechanics are perfect for night themes, and should absolutely stay as they are. We got weird water physics, completely iced floors, light gravity, and darkness, which are all completely fine as is. But wind, poison, rotten mushroom, moons, maybe even those weird enemy and power-up varieties should be available in every style, no matter what. Okay, so many of the night elements are open now. How do we utilize this newly found freedom? Well, wind would be completely under your control instead of being based on the style. And maybe at the beginning of every level that actually has wind in it, there could be an icon that shows you where the wind is blowing. The night ground enemy varieties could be controlled by a new additive element. So, along with the parachute, wings, and the mushroom, we'd also get the moon. When placing this onto a course part, it will cover it in a dark aura and make it act as though it were in the night ground theme. Ooh. This would allow items like and rotten mushroom to be used during the day, the ability to mix day and night variants of the same item in a single level, and the ability to use these weird enemies in other nighttime themes. Practically speaking, this would add tons of new variations for items and enemies, at next to no cost. Meanwhile, back to night themes in general, the aesthetics. They're currently very mediocre. The music is kind of awful, and the backgrounds are all exactly the same. I'd much prefer the night themes to actually be these levels at night, and for the music to actually fit the game, like, in general. They don't have to get rid of the current songs, but, you know, more options the better.
While Mario Maker 2 generously gave us the option to pick between 4 different characters to play as, because competitive multiplayer is a thing, they're essentially just reskinned Mario clones. While this is fine in theory, I can't help but hope for more unique characters to play as next time around. Adding characters with different movesets is almost more impactful than adding a new course part, as it opens up tons of new ways to use already existing mechanics. The Master Sword and SMB2 Mushroom are clear examples of this. Just these 2 simple additions enabled so many different quirks when designing levels around them. Next time around, though, I'd love it if these weren't simply power-ups. The fact that you turn back into regular Mario after taking damage means you either have to spam these power-ups everywhere or make your course ridiculously hard. If we had the option to assign a certain character to a level, that would make things much simpler. It could also allow for more creative approaches to taking damage, such as health bars instead of your typical lose your power-up status.
Yeah, perhaps something similar could even be done for regular power-ups, giving them a more permanent variation. If you want to make an entire level based around a single one of those, it would be immensely helpful. Even the infamous Fire Flower Bowser fights you all know and hate would be a fun challenge with this simple variation. And yeah, the other Mario characters, while it's great that they're in the game, it kinda sucks that they don't act like you would expect them to. They should all have their respective playstyles, as long as in multiplayer everyone plays the same character, obviously. Luigi's big floaty jumps and low traction, Toad's lower jumps but immensely high speed and strength. Even Toadette could have some of Peachette's moves, or at least the double jump or something. And speaking of Princess Peach, duh. And with these Mario characters specifically, their individual skill sets could be combined with all the other power-ups. Man, I can imagine a bunch of crazy levels already.
Exactly. When the Master Sword update hit, I was pretty hopeful. However, the fact that the only other unique character we got was in the final major update to the game is a huge bummer.
Man, clear conditions, what a bunch of missed potential. Like, you'd think we'd be happy to have them, but more often than not, when you see a level with one in it, it fills you with a surreal sense of dread. Reality crumbles around you, your body feels as though it was made of stone. But still, somehow, your hand reaches the minus button. Making a good experience with clear conditions is way harder than it should be, and I think with a few minor changes, it could be a much better feature. First of all, obviously, let us use checkpoints in these levels. As long as it saves our clear condition progress and the level isn't terribly designed, this should be a lifesaver. Secondly, if the clear condition makes you irreversibly fail a level if you mess it up, make it actually kill you immediately. Thirdly, I think I, and many other people, were kinda caught off guard by the lack of variety with clear conditions in general. Super obvious and highly requested ones like clear the level without jumping, clear the level as a pacifist and not defeating any enemies or not defeating a certain kind or amount of enemies, reach the end of the level without touching any power-ups or coins, you know, that kind of thing. Stuff like that is nowhere to be seen. Not to mention, there are a whopping 5 clear conditions in the story mode which aren't available to builders for some reason. So add those back in and then give us a lot more to work with. Finally, and this is a big one, allow us to have optional clear conditions. Maybe it gives you more 1-ups, maybe it opens a hidden door that only appears if this clear condition is met, or maybe it just gives you bragging rights on the post-level comments. Just give us something. Clear conditions would be far more fun to engage with if it was a neat optional challenge, and you aren't constantly stressing out about missing something and having to restart the whole level once you reach the end. Oh my god. It would also give us a star coin equivalent, and people have always wanted that. If I'm being brutally honest, a part of me actually wants to get rid of Mario Maker 2's multiplayer in its entirety. It was handled so abysmally, was so fundamentally broken in nearly every conceivable way, that I think the lack of new power-ups at launch, the removal of the mystery and skinny mushrooms, and God knows what else, just wasn't worth it. But let's just assume Nintendo hires a bigger art team the next time around. They make new sprites for all the characters, maybe add in a playable Princess Peach, all is good with the world. How would I fix it then? Well, this seems kind of extremely obvious, but let people actually choose how they want their levels to be played. Yeah, crazy, right? If you're making a level that's meant for single player only, let us do it. If you want to make a level specifically for 2-player co-op, let us do that. 4-player versus, you better believe you can make it so that you can only play that level in 4-player versus mode. Wow! 3-player co-op, 2-player versus, a level that works with any amount of players in any mode. You absolutely should be able to do that. It's kind of baffling to me that this isn't already a thing, considering it would fix so much wrong with the current system. It took us a full year to get a single-player only tag, and even with that, you can only have 2 tags total, making it a pretty unnecessary waste of tagging space. And I still get stuck with 4-player racing stages all the time in single-player endless mode. Tags or not, another obvious bonus of this is that if you're making a level designated as single-player only, they could absolutely bring the mystery mushroom back. Maybe the item cap could even be raised, who knows? And then there's the net code. We are really paying for this, huh? Just actually commit if you're gonna do online play, because this is just sad.
Speaking of multiplayer, does anyone actually use the co-op building mode in the course editor? This was a feature everyone was freaking out about before launch, yet I barely see anybody using it today, and for good reason. Nintendo being Nintendo forces this mode to only be usable with 2 separate sideways Joy-Cons. You know, everyone's favorite way to hold these things. And clearly, with only half a controller for each player, you'd each be able to do half of the building, right? No! Player 1 can do pretty much whatever they want, albeit with crappy controls, but player 2 is stuck with an entirely different toolbar and limited editing options. This is basically the equivalent of passing your little brother an unplugged controller just so they feel included. If and when Mario Maker 3 comes out, I'd love to see an option for co-op level building that people actually use. One with full controller support, split screen, and heck, even building levels together over the internet. If I'm being totally honest, I could do without co-op building if there was just a way to share unfinished levels with other people. For collaborators, this would mean each player could build a section, then send it off to the next person. And even for those who don't like making levels with others, this would be a good way to get your level playtested before publishing it to the course world. Playtesting is such an important role in level design, and this would quite literally be a game changer.
One jab that has constantly been thrown at Mario Maker since time immemorial has always been that actually finding decent levels is about as reliable as Nintendo's online net play. As in, it's not. Mario Maker has always made it extremely difficult to find whatever you're looking for, because that's just what Nintendo do. Over time, Mario Maker 2 has added more and more ways to find more specific types of levels, but it's still not good. The difficulty I had finding levels for footage in this very video can attest to that. The ability to search for night levels and specific clear conditions would be a godsend. Filtering levels in the new and hot tabs would be pretty obvious. Having an actual bookmark website again. Just why did they remove that one in the first place? Here's an obvious one. How about the ability to search for courses and creators by name? The only reason I assume that they don't do this already is that it would make it very obvious how many people sneak in swear words. But honestly, that seems like a load of $H1+. Another very important thing we need is a complete overhaul of the tagging system. The number of recommended players and the recommended or required mode should be inherent to the level itself and separate from tags in general. As far as for what's left, you should get a vastly increased amount of tags per level, instead of the current limit of 2. An expanded variety of tags on top of that is pretty self-explanatory. Link gets a tag, so why not give every special power-up its own tag? We finally got a Kaizo equivalent, so why not a tag for troll levels? Specifically so I don't have to play them ever. Traditional levels should also get a tag, as well as remakes, minigames, contraptions, really the more the merrier. In Mario Maker 1, level building was both a tool and a game. In Mario Maker 2, it's just a tool. It's no secret that making levels in Mario Maker 2 just isn't as fun as building levels in the original. One massive part of this is due to the controls. Building on the TV is a massive chore, and building portably is only really better if you go through the effort to buy a specialty stylus. Toggleable erase, copy, and multi-grab, limited visibility, the fact that you can't download and edit other people's levels anymore, and a general lack of cross-compatibility experimentation thanks to all the weird limitations. The whole system is very much not ideal. Look, I know the transition from the near-perfect Wii U setup was a difficult one, but I really think we could have gotten better. Even then, a lot of the gamishness has been taken out as well. There's no experimentation, no discovery, nearly no unlockable parts. Everything is neatly laid out for you from the start. Elements no longer have unique reactions to being shaken, as they can no longer be shaken. The fly swatter minigame is gone. Every single way you can alter an enemy is shown to you the second you click on it. Not only does this make everything less fun, but it also sucks out the game's charm a fair bit. I mean, we don't even get those weird death sounds, Skinny Mario, or the title screen Easter eggs anymore. Lame. Now, obviously, there's a place for this static grid, no-nonsense tool style of building. Something like that should absolutely be an option for pro builders. But for casual players and kids, there is nothing particularly engaging about this building system. Some may say this is a good thing since we get less bad levels. But you all saw the way that Mario Maker 2's player base fell off the edge of a cliff compared to the original. Part of that may have been due to the generally limited amount of new content or the Nintendo Switch Online requirement, but I can't help but feel that half of the game not being particularly fun was also a major factor. It's for the best to keep as many people as engaged with the game for as long as possible. Speaking of which...
The cruelest part about the Mario Maker series this far is the lack of support after the game's released. Sure, we got a handful of updates, and Mario Maker 2's content updates have objectively been way more interesting than the first ones, but 2 or 3 patches with a handful of new course parts spaced out over an entire year is not a great way to keep people engaged. Mario Maker has so much potential for contests, limited events, and DLC. 3 great ways to keep a game thriving well after launch. I thought the inclusion of Ninja speedruns a while ago was a step in the right direction, but even that didn't have nearly enough content to get players to stick around. It also only catered to a fraction of the player base that actually enjoyed speedrunning. Why not throw in contests for those who, want to make levels in a game about making Mario levels? Nintendo could host weekly or monthly creator challenges, with certain requirements for each course. Things like only in a certain game style or theme, without using certain blocks, or focusing on a certain course element, and tons of other stuff I haven't thought about. Even if they don't do anything like this, Nintendo should at least focus resources on keeping the player base in the loop. The Mario Maker dev team is notoriously quiet until they decide to drop a hefty update. Which might be exciting in the moment, but the months of radio silence in between does more harm than good.
I guess you could say that World Builder has meant the world for builders everywhere, and was basically the feature to add in Mario Maker 3. But now that the ice has been preemptively broken, like an asteroid colliding with a cold stone creamery, I think we should talk about how it could be improved. Because while it's great now, it's still pretty vanilla. Practically speaking, actually being able to have more than one super world is obvious, as well as the ability to actually give them and the individual worlds actual names. Another important inclusion beyond that would be giving us more ways to find these super worlds. You know, the ones that are actually good. Right now, it's pretty much completely random unless you scour the internet for them. Which is pretty bad design, honestly. Giving players more control over how their world is played is also a necessity, I think. Like being able to choose if game overs start you at the beginning of the level, or taking the classic approach and making you restart the entire world. You know, for all the sadists out there. Not to mention if your levels don't have checkpoints, game overs basically do nothing. Or how about actual power-up carryover between levels? In order to prevent soft locking, I'd imagine you'd need to be able to beat each level starting as both tall and short Mario, but it definitely could be done. Other things people would love include secret exits, star coins that can unlock bonus levels in your world, or maybe just a star world, storing power-ups for later use, more traditional enemy encounters, even Switch palaces and their respective dotted line blocks. That last one would require a ton of clears to upload each level, but it could be done. There's a lot you could do here to really up that immersion, but that's all small potatoes compared to visual control. Okay, not really, but you know we need more things to work with visually. The space we have available currently in World Maker is pretty meager. The amount of ways we can customize that space is similarly small. We probably shouldn't be limited to a single screen, and we certainly shouldn't be limited to such a small 7x4 grid of huge, chunky, somewhat unwieldy tiles. Add to that the fact that there is a surprisingly limited amount of aesthetic pieces that all take up a ton of space. and it becomes really hard for you to make your world truly distinct. While being able to, say, make an entire interconnected world may be a bit too ambitious, I think shrinking the tiles, increasing the amount of space, and adding tons of decorative items of various sizes would really take this feature to the next level. One final thing, World Maker is currently extremely Mario World focused. Being able to switch up styles would be a dream come true, but if that's not on the table, just add more references to the other games. What's the point of making a world without Mario 3's bouncing hills? Spoiler alert, there is no point. I'm super hyped for the future of Mario Maker. While I personally consider this sequel a bit of a stumble in terms of quality, this last update has really got me thinking about how the series can grow. We're just barely scratching the surface in terms of Mario course elements, and we still have a long way to go in terms of base mechanics. The possibilities are quite literally endless, and I'd love to see what you people think should be in the sequel, whether it be fixes, themes, enemies. I just really want to know. But until then, this has been The Hidden Chest, and thank you for watching.
Although if you're still enjoying Mario Maker 2 in spite of its flaws, you can check out my channel, where I create videos about level design theory. And a huge thank you to Concealed Crate for having me on.
I'm extremely upset.